Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Dr. Nelson Ogunshaki. You're welcome to this COVID webinar conference seminar. It's an opportunity for us to listen to the future leader in looking at the post-COVID consulting engineering industry. We're really blessed today to have the future leader within FIDIC to debate this subject. In our usual manner, I'd like to welcome all our guests from wherever you are around the world. I'm told that we've got over 900 people registered. For those who are new to this particular webinar program, this is about 26th version of our webinar with over 20,000 people registered since we started it. And I do believe that over 11,500 people attended so far. We're from 150 countries, and so far so good. We keep getting more and more people attending this particular program through our YouTube channel. So I understand today with 930 people registered, and we're looking at people from different parts of the world, from India, from United Kingdom, from United States, and the list is actually quite good. Over the months that we've covered this webinar program, a lot of key messages has come through. Part of it is look at the new normal. I think the young one will be discussing later. What is it working practice going to be looking like? You know, how do we go forward in the future? Issues about communication within company, outside company, with client, relationship, engagement. The issue about COVID-19, what is the financial implication on the industry? It is suggested will impact between 1 to 2 trillion. How far is it going to impact our industry is yet to know. Investments in infrastructure portfolio will change. There is a view that maybe perhaps, there will be shift towards more of what I call social infrastructure rather than economic infrastructure. Is that going to be the case? Nobody knows. There is an issue about well-being of staff, how people are surviving, the particular COVID, and also what is the implication after the COVID event. There is the issue about short-term impact on infrastructure, both in terms of the medium and long term. What is the risk implication of the pandemic? How is this going to affect our industry? There is also the issues about the impact on contract, on construction project, and the need for collaboration. I'm sure you're going to hear that again, about collaboration in the industry. And then there was one message which is actually quite profound, that regardless of where you are and what size of company you are, the impact of technology is going to be severe, and we're all going to face it regardless of whether you are small or large. So over the last 6 months, as we are now in June, coming towards the end of June, halfway through the year, we've actually put a 3-in-1 program together where we look at the FIDIC committees, looking at actually what we are doing within FIDIC as an organization. How do we get our message across? We are looking at what we're doing on our State of the World report, and we're also looking at issues impacting the COVID, which is an ongoing issue. So in terms of looking forward, we have more committee coming up on the 5th of October. We have a new document coming up on the 22nd of July, which is the State of the World, and there will be more coming through on YouTube. So moving forward, really, I think the task on me this morning or this afternoon or this evening, wherever you are, is really to introduce Bill Howard, our president, who continuously supports us in this particular mission. He has not missed any single webinar so far. I don't know how he does it, considering his time zone is far different from mine. So I'm delighted to invite Bill to say a few words to start off this morning. Thank you, Bill. The floor is yours.
And thank you, Nelson. First of all, I would like to once again thank you, Nelson, and the Secretariat for putting these webinars on so successfully. As Nelson mentioned, we've done a number of them over the past year and a half, and have reached out to many more people than FIDIC has ever reached out to in the past. I think that is absolutely terrific. Putting these webinars on, pardon me, but putting these webinars on under any circumstances is a challenge. With us all, many of us working remotely, et cetera, makes the challenge even more significant. So my compliments again to the Secretariat for their excellent work in putting these webinars on. And I apologize for my voice. It was fine up until 2 minutes ago, but it is early over here. So at any rate, I'd also like to thank the speakers that we have today, all from our Future Leaders Council. They are an excellent group to be talking about the subject today, which is the change in actual physical work and its impact on services. I think, as Nelson pointed out, change is to be expected after this pandemic. But exactly what that change is, none of us really know. So the message that I would leave with everyone is to try to be as flexible as possible to identify the changes that are coming, maybe changes that we should be thinking of implementing, but be ready for surprises, because nothing in this world is definite. Whenever I think of change, I think back in my career in the late 1970s and 1980s, there was an explosion of computer-aided design, and there was all sorts of computer programs to prepare automated designs, et cetera. And many of us at the time thought that these systems would be so expensive that that only very large firms would be able to compete. And in fact, just the opposite happened. As technology got more and more sophisticated, more and more firms, regardless of size, could really compete in this computer-aided design world. And that was a surprise to a lot of people. So that would be a message I think I'd leave with people, that something that we really thought would definitely happen did not, just the opposite did, as a matter of fact. Once again, I apologize for the difficulty with my voice, and I turn it back to you, Nelson, to get on with the program.
Thank you very much, Bill, for that warm welcome. Thank you very much once again. I'm not quite sure how to put it. I mean, to get Bill out early in the morning and to expect him to be 100% perfect, I think we're expecting magic. Bill, thank you very much for your continued support. I'm glad that you are even able to join us, and hopefully you can get some water and get things moving on. It really leads me to introduce the panel for today. I am not going to operate the session. I'm really going to do a quick introduction. For those who are, familiar with FIDIC, we have what we call the future leaders. The future leaders are people under 40 years of age, and they are cut across from different parts of the world, and they form the Future Leader Council. And for the benefit of doubt, those particular who are in that particular council, they help the board to shape and to discuss big issues which are impacting the industry, including their chair, who also sits and support the board on a regular basis. So without further ado, I'm delighted to introduce Adam Polewski, who is the president of the chair of the council. And Adam has done a fantastic job since he took over. It's only 6-7 months into that role, but he's had a lot of handover from his predecessor, and he's doing a wonderful job. So Adam is going to take the floor and actually introduce his panel and moderate. Meanwhile, myself and Bill will be in the background to support. If you ever need us, we'll be there. Thank you very much, Adam. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President Howard, and thank you, FIDIC CEO, Dr. Ogunshakin, for all your support. And you've always been mentors to us at the Future Leader Council, and you've changed not only my career, but I think the career of the entire group. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak to the world today. I'll get right into it. We have a great panel today. We are very excited to present the views of future leaders from different countries, different continents on different topics with regards to COVID and its impact on the consulting engineering industry. Please hold your questions to the end. We'll take your questions around 1:20 or so, or 1:15 if we get to that time, and I'll let you know, and then we'll address the questions to the panelists. In the meantime, I would like to change a bit the way we introduce our speakers. We usually go alphabetical order, but I would like to begin first with Rita Kuyala, who is a guest of ours from EFCA. She's the Future Leader Council Chair of EFCA, our European Association for Consulting Engineers. Rita's from Finland. She currently works as a technology manager in AFRI. She has a technical background in the field of chemical engineering and expertise in bioprocess development and bio-based fuels. Moving right along, Andre Assunção, our home FIDIC Future Leader Council member. He's from Brazil. He's a business development director at TPF, a civil and mechanical production engineer, and as I said, a member of our council. Owen Kulinane is a senior project engineer with Nicholas O'Dwyer in Ireland. He's a member of also the FIDIC Future Leaders Council and the FIDIC Contracts Committee. He has a wide experience on infrastructure projects both in Ireland and internationally. Kaveh Heshmati from Iran, a structural analysis engineer from Sano Consulting Engineers with a good experience in the Middle East and a Future Leader Council member. And finally, Masao Yamakawa, who is a professional engineer in Japan in the field of electricity. He works for developing countries by offering consulting services for construction of renewable energy facilities, substitution and distribution lines. Organizationally, this will be a round table, so we have 3 topics to cover. The speakers will have a brief notes on each of the topics ahead of us, and we would like to engage the audience with online questions. So just to warm you up a little bit, we are really interested from what continent you are from. So if you could take a second to please answer this poll. And as you saw, all our speakers come from different continents. So we would be interested in the perspective of where you're from, as well as a future leader perspective. We'll wait a couple of seconds for the results. Okay, so an overwhelming majority of you come from Asia, and then Europe, Africa on the same level. And we see North America, South America as well. Antarctica, unfortunately, 0%. It's still, the global warming has not caused people to move there yet. So thank you very much for answering this. And I'll move along with our first topic, which is the changes in actual physical work setting and its impact on the service delivery. Andre, if you could offer your perspective as from TPF and from Brazil, it would be a pleasure to listen to your input.
Thank you, Adam. Good morning, everyone from Brazil. Talk about a little bit the changes in the actual physical work setting and our service delivery. I think the main thing that we figured out in the COVID is that we now can produce our service deliveries, our services from anywhere. So if you can produce anywhere, we are increasing our labor supply and reduce real estate costs. For example, just in the beginning of the pandemic, we were hire a new team in a very we can say in Portuguese, a hot market. It's a full employment market where it's hard to hire new people, and this is the southeast of Brazil, in Minas Gerais. And we have some difficulty in bringing new engineering from the city because the market this was a full employment market. So we hire people from anywhere else from Brazil, but we have some costs to accommodation. We have travel costs to send these people to work in this place, because we believe that people needed to work together, because they all need to be in the same office. They all need to see everyone each morning, every afternoon. So we have people from a lot of places from Brazil, and even for Europe. We have some engineers from Portugal that they moved with their families to Brazil. And after the pandemic starts, we sent everyone home, and we realized that our service was delivered okay. So why we have to hire people just on the city? Why cannot we hire people anywhere? So nowadays in this team, we have people working from, I believe, 7 or 8 different cities across Brazil. People from the south, very south of Brazil, people from the very north of Brazil, and they are all working together, and they are working from their home. And people that work for Europe, they come back to their homes, and the client doesn't even want them living here in Brazil anymore. They said, okay, after the pandemic, you can came here on demand. You do your stuff, you do your field survey, and you can go back home. So we believe that this is amazing because we were too stick it to the place that we were working, and it was so hard to hire new people. And now we have, okay, we can hire for anywhere.
Thank you,
I think
Andre.
this is a great change.
I think it's been a big impact on many of our regions. Rita, for you from Finland, have you seen an impact on working from home versus office? What's your perspective on the topic?
Yes, hello everyone also from Finland. Yes, we have been seeing some change, of course, related to what Andre said, that to the remote working. We've been quite flexible on remote working already before the pandemic in Finland, I think, compared to some of the countries or some of the industries also. But I think during the pandemic, we've been in a kind of forced remote work phase. And during that phase, we've been able to see that we've been able to gather up to some of the people up to 50% more active work time for our days, which is obviously huge increase for our projects, for example. But I think this is a little bit suspicious also to have this much more kind of free work time. And I've been trying to figure why is it so? And I think maybe, is it because as all the meetings are online, we're able to do some additional work at the same time while we're attending to our meetings? Or is it simply because we do not need to move to another meeting room just by walking, but just by clicking? So we are saving some time. And of course, we don't need to commute to our workplaces at the moment. And I personally do think that we are able to schedule our days more efficiently during our remote work days, but I see quite so many downsides also in this new efficient work way of working. And I do not believe in multitasking during the meetings. And I also highly doubt that people are really efficient during their working days without any breaks in between clicking from a meeting to another. And what I hope is that people would learn from this forced remote work time is to think which meetings are necessary and which ones are not, and try to think is also that, is it really efficient working to multitask during a meeting if you're not forced to keep your cameras on? And that is something that might be also cultural, whether you need to put your camera on or not.
That's really a good point. I think when you asked about cultural aspects of engaging in meetings, it would be really interesting to hear from Kaveh, who's from Iran and represents a different naturally culture than both Rita and myself. So Kaveh, have you seen the impact on changes in, I don't know, design and work, and how, you know, home design, city design maybe?
Thank you, Adam. Hello, everyone. Actually, since the beginning of pandemic, there's a sudden increase in the number of people who work from home and remotely. And this can lead us to change the way we think about how we can design our homes and cities in the future. Because I believe that even after the pandemic is over, so the situation wouldn't be the same as the before pandemic time. So from now on, in terms of designing homes, probably homes play a greater role in our lives because we spend more time at home. And so homes need to accommodate greater services and functions, and occupants need to do different activities like working, spending leisure time with families, and etc., all together at the same place. So I'm gonna mention a couple of points in terms of designing homes. So one point could be designing a separate space, outdoor space for homes, because now people are more willing to socialize and meet their friends outdoors rather than indoors. The other one could be paying more attention to indoor air quality and in general air purification system and ventilations, as coronavirus transmits through the air rapidly. So this would be really interesting topic. The other thing could be designing spaces for at entrance of buildings for sanitization and cleaning purposes. And the more important thing would be designing homes at the integral part of home designs. Offices as the integral part of home designs, because and preferably if we can locate these offices in outdoor private spaces, this can give us a sense that, okay, we go out for work and then come back home. So in terms of designing cities, it's impacting the growth of our cities, because previously people need to go to flocked into big cities and work in large city centers, but now on, because of this pandemic, there is less tendency to work in metropolitans. So we would expect a boom in suburbs and rural areas, and we would expect less densities in the near future.
Yeah, thank you, Kaveh. I think that follows pricing in my country, because the suburbs real estate market has been exploding in Poland. So I'm not sure in other countries, but it matches with the trends you are mentioning. Owen, as an Irish perspective and our future leader from the contract committee, could you please offer your perspective on the subject?
Thanks, Adam. Yeah, I'd certainly agree with an awful lot of what's been said so far. And I think one of the other interesting things that has challenged us during this time when everybody has been working remotely has been just trying to engage with our clients and trying to manage that client consultant relationship. You know, we've obviously been unable to, with restrictions here, certainly we've been unable to visit client offices, depending on the project, whether it's counted as kind of critical infrastructure. We may have been also unable to visit sites. So that's made design more difficult, but it's also made just engaging with clients more difficult, and making sure that everybody is working together and moving a project along together more difficult. But it's also given kind of more impetus to some new technologies and given some further opportunities to bring new technologies on board. So you know, something like full implementation of BIM and 3D models and that sort of thing, and having proper full virtual reality walkthroughs, example, for a pump station, where you can't sit down with a big book of drawings and go through it page by page with a client, but you can show a little flyby of the building or the development or whatever it is with a virtual reality walkthrough to give a full understanding of how that's going to work. But I suppose it comes back to the more traditional aspects. Always, I think, in terms of just the most critical thing is regular client communication and regular check-ins to make sure that everybody is on the same page, whether that's on Teams or Zoom or whatever that we've all kind of moved to, or just picking up the phone to clients and having that chat through, making sure that that we're all on the same page and moving the project along together.
Yeah.
And I think during COVID, that's all been very successfully implemented, because as society, we've all been very COVID focused and everybody has been trying to push that along. I think what we need to manage is, as society starts to open up, but maybe we start to continue with more flexible working arrangements, that we just continue to manage that and make sure that those relationships are kept strong. Yeah.
Thank you, Owen. Going back a little bit to Rita's point, I would like to ask Masao to offer his perspective also about this. We're still on time, so Masao, I know that flexibility for the workplace and time is something key, what we discussed privately before, so it would be interesting if you could mention a couple words on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam, and thank you for the audience from all over the world, and ASEAN audience who counts for the highest. Thank you very much. Yeah, and mine is similar to Rita's, and my point of view is a bit different from a bit different point of view. For me, changes brought flexibility to place and time of work, which contribute to the work and life balance. When I work from home, I could utilize commuting time for spending time with family, such as having dinner together with my family, and also taking some walk after dinner. I also could spare it for sleeping when I was very busy. And while doing so, I also could check progress of the project abroad and could do some activities like this by using digital tools. Yeah, and this is a kind of private issue, but last year I got newborn in my family. That flexibility enabled me to keep communication with the foreign client from home while doing childcare. So that's a big development from for engineers having projects all over the world. However, what we need to keep in mind is so-called remote work harassment. I don't know whether it's only in Japan or worldwide. It is, for example, to check too much of someone's room, furniture, or clothes during online meeting. Today, we are protected with this background, though. And also, not to trust someone's work from home, and checking too much is also included. And in addition, self-control and consideration for others are very important. This is similar to what Richard said. Yeah, and this is how I've been feeling during this period of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Masao. We have an online question for the audience. Are you ready to return to full-time work physically present at the office? I know different countries and different cultures look at this differently, so it would be interesting to see what you think. In the meantime, I can tell how we are doing it here in Poland, where up till now it's been optional in our company. And I would say 80 or 90% of people have decided to return back to the office without any mandatory requirement of them to do so. It's just more comfortable for them to work at home, but this may be due to our low COVID infection rates recently. So I would be interested to see the results. Yeah, so 64% of the people at our audience are ready to come back, work full-time physically at the office. Nelson, maybe I could put you on the spot and ask you to comment on this.
Actually, this is wonderful news. There's always a danger to get complacent about working from home. As you know, Masao actually said, and some of your colleagues, there has a positive side and a negative side. I think having a balanced view where flexibility can be encouraged in the working environment, and that allows you to have a well-balanced life work is always very good. And if 60% are looking to going back into work, I can see a new norm where there will be a hybrid rather than Monday to Friday, 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock, where people may probably work possibility. And actually, this is actually quite good for our infrastructure globally, because then it means the less intensive use of our infrastructure, a well-balanced society, and people can actually take advantage of the opportunity. I think this is the way to go in the future. I mean, the new norm, as far as I see it, taking FIDIC as a starting point, some of our staff are back in the office and some are still working from home. As I speak to you now, I'm working from home, but you can't tell the technologies help me to bridge the gap. But I think going forward in future, employer need to take cognizance of the way the world is moving, and we have to look at a hybrid where there's a balanced time for people to get a balanced lifestyle and still work. And that may mean maybe, 3 days in the office and 2 days working from home. So I think is a way to come for the future. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you, Nelson. We'll move to our second topic, which is the impact of new physical on new virtual technologies for consulting engineering practice. And I would like to go back to Andre to discuss how technological aspects have impacted your business practice. Go ahead, Andre.
Yeah, I believe that some companies that haven't started their digital transformation process before COVID were forced to start it after. So, for example, I believe that we increase the use of technology mainly because of the restriction to visit sites, to field survey, and supervision works. So, for example, we have a restriction for our senior engineering going to the field, but we still need their opinion. So we increased a lot the use of drones, images collected by drones by our junior staff and mid staff. So we believe that it's not the same thing, but it's better than not the senior engineering looking to the field, looking to what's happening. So I believe that this is the example of technology used to help us due to the restriction that we have. Also, we are now using artificial intelligence to help this engineering, because we are doing kind of machine learning to the supervision works. So we have some automatic report that of course need to be reviewed and signed by a senior engineer and senior staff, but it's kind of example of new technologies. And we think that the velocity of this increase is high because of the pandemics. But this comes with a problem, because we believe that almost good part of our contracts that we receive our billables by our payments by man hour. So how to prove your client that you are doing the same work, or how to monetize this kind of work with not the same manpower, or if the client not seeing that manpower in the field because they're in the office. So we are now struggling with this. I don't know if anyone has this same experience, but it's difficult because, okay, you have a man in the field, so you receive. Oh no, but you have a man in your home. Is he working? Or how much can I receive for this innovation? So it's really difficult to monetize this. Also, talking a little bit about the commercial prospecting. I think this is really hard in this new virtual, because that five beginning minutes you have every meeting, or 5 minutes after the meeting, when you talk to the client, when you see, look in the eyes, you go to a lunch, you go to a dinner, and you talk about the business perspectives for the next year, for the next months. You don't have this in the new virtual. So I believe, as Nelson was saying, that we have to manage some hybrid thing, because the full-time home, you don't have this human interaction that is really, really necessary to our business development.
Thank you, Andre. Yeah, I've experienced similar problems in my country and in Eastern Europe in general about physical presence of key staff employed during a tender phase. So yeah, it's really been interesting, especially since key staff are usually a bit older, so they're more afraid of COVID in general. So this adds to the element. Rita, how has it been in Finland?
Yeah. I agree with Andre that the client relationship, and also everyone said that the client relationship is a little bit harder to really create, and you're not able to see the client's face really, or the impression of what are their feelings after the selling process, for example. And that is something that is at the moment a little bit hard to create a proper relationship with the client. But I think that is also internally in our companies a challenge to try to bring the communality to the people at home. It is not only our challenge with the clients, because many people may feel quite alone at home with their own work, and I think not all the managers are able to really take care of the employee well-being needs that they would require at the moment. And I feel that the lead engineers and project managers really need to do some of that work at the moment. And I think I don't have the answer to that, but I think we will require some support also for the future for that challenge. But I want to also discuss a little bit, Andre was discussing about the drones and use of novel technologies, and some of the others also earlier. I am quite thrilled at the moment to see how we've been able to really use our existing tools and try to use them in a new way, so that we are able to work from home at the moment. And I think I have an experience from a workshop. I needed to hold a workshop 1 year ago when the pandemic just started, and we really struggled organizing it, but at the end we succeeded very well And I think it was even better because we really needed to organize it properly beforehand. And I've been seeing this in other tools also. For example, I'm so happy to see that the clients have been able to create the virtual tours to the fields, so that we've been able to really look at the plant and what is going on in there. And one of the positive sides also that I've been discussing with my colleagues also is that we've been able to hear what the client is saying. We've been able to discuss about those topics, because normally, well, I'm at the from the chemical engineering side. So at the plants, there's huge background noise all the time. So there's mainly one people talking at a time normally on site. But here we've been able to discuss fully with the client, with the whole team. But of course, there's the downside also. We're not able to look around properly and see all the corners. But I think these are things that we should carry over also to the time after the pandemic, and continue working and using these tools and benefit from these learnings.
Thank you, Rita. And Kaveh, how is it in your part of the world and your experiences?
Yeah, in general, education is the important part of consulting engineering in most part of the world, and also Iran. And especially since the last 2 decades, the introduction of internet to engineers who are good learners of different stuff during their careers, as they need to improve their skills in line with the developments in industry. So the internet actually has changed the rules of the game in general. And for example, for a structural engineer like me, 30 years ago, he or she would refer to a textbook to find a specific question to design a steel frame. But now he or she can easily access to a wide source of information via internet, and that would be a great opportunity in general for learners like engineers in consulting firms. And the one important thing in this aspect is access to this wide source of information is regardless of the geographic location of people. For example, an engineer in consulting engineering in Iran can easily access a management course in McGill University without a need to travel to Montreal. Rather than attending a physical classroom, so he can easily attend online classrooms, digital classrooms via online platforms like Zoom or Microsoft Teams, which is really beneficial in terms of save the time and also save the time for commute to that places. And also the other opportunity would be that these lectures in these courses are mostly being recorded. So you can refer to that lectures and classes whenever you have time. So this is very good opportunity for engineers, and actually attending workshops and different courses for civil engineers is really is facilitated for engineers in general.
I think this is a great opportunity to plug the FIDIC Future Leader Certificate Program, which is done entirely online. And before COVID, it was already being done online, and with meetings once a year at the annual conference, which we hope will return soon. So if you are interested in educating yourself remotely, please check out the FIDIC website and look for the courses offered online, because there's plenty of them. Masao, if I know that you have some experience internationally, so to speak, not only in Japan proper, but in your region, and maybe this can also tie into this online trends that we see.
Yeah, thank you very much. As other speakers said, yeah, of course, we have a difficulty in communicating with the client or the team members. But when it comes to the daily communication, for example, like the safety reporting checkings or some greetings or updating of the the project, new or advanced technology gave us a closer communication, especially with foreign members. And by using chat, we can communicate and even sharing the files in a timely manner. Yeah. But however, I think there's a room for the improvement. It is still not easy to check big drawings in a small screen. It is like working at a small desk. I'm talking about the equipment itself. And at the moment, we can manage with the additional screen by using some equipment together. But more advanced technology itself, such as AR or projection or even the virtual office are welcomed. And also, we are facing some issues, which is the security of the networks. Protection of the network against hacking is very, very important. But because of its high security, equipment that can access to the company's network is limited. So that we need to carry computers, the laptops all the time, yeah, which is not so good. And we need to find a way to utilize the technologies more effectively while looking for more advanced technologies. That's the thing, what I'm feeling.
Thank you, Masao. It's really interesting from a point of security because it's also a cultural thing, I think, because different cultures have different principle when it comes to the level of internet security they are aware of, let's say it's like this. So very interesting what you mentioned. Owen, if I could ask for you to wrap up this session. We're on time, so we're doing very well. Thank you, Owen.
Okay, thanks, Adam. Yeah, I think listening to Kava speaking about the great opportunities for accessing learning, and I think we can see that here on the FIDIC webinars, where we have such a great regional reach now that it's probably far greater than we would have ever had before in any one webinar, certainly, or any one event. And that's brilliant. But that is kind of balanced against what Rita was speaking about in a kind of cultural dissemination of how an office is set up and how a company operates, and getting that across to staff. And I think that's particularly important for junior staff and kind of graduate engineers, initial professional development, and how they're brought into an organization. I suppose as engineers, you know, when we go to bid for projects, we're judged on our experience, on our corporate experience, and on our individual professional experience. And an awful lot of how that kind of senior management knowledge and corporate experience is disseminated down to junior staff has been through the office environment, through how we work together in teams, and how the QA checking procedure works on our documents and our drawings and our designs. And so it's important to make sure that continues with people working remotely. And if people are accessing a wider range of training materials, that's obviously very welcome and to be commended. But I think in the office, there's a little bit more focus on delivering projects. And I know if we all think back to when we first started and you got your report back and it was pages covered in red pen, or your drawings back and there were pages covered in red pen, and somebody sat down beside you and went through how to improve that and what was needed and the kind of standard that needed to be met to send that out to a client. And so there are some challenges in how we do that remotely. And again, I think the biggest thing is we don't have as much informal interaction when we're all working remotely. So we have to replace that with kind of setting up formal calls and checking in with people. And when everybody's busy, that can be very, very difficult. But that's probably when it's actually at its most critical, when everybody is busy, that we put aside the time to check in, particularly with junior staff, but with everybody, and to make sure that we have that catch up and that we're getting that interaction, and that everybody understands that they're supported, and that they're getting the feedback they need to carry out their role.
Yeah, very good points, especially about getting the feedback from your first report written in red pen. I think we can all relate to this and remember our first thing that we produced in real work and do it, especially now when there is a whole generation of new engineers who started working when the pandemic started and they received their first reports back in an email. I think it might be a bit overwhelming, so it's important for middle managers and senior managers to set up those calls and try to criticism goes along is hard when it's done via email. It's totally different when it's done in that manner of which you spoke. So thank you for that comment. We have another online question lined up for you. Has your employer provided assistance to you in delivering your work during COVID? Another yes or no question. So please take your time to answer it. Mr. President, I hate putting FIDIC's president on the spot, but if I can ask you once the results come in to say a couple of words, because I'm sure as we remember our report, you might remember giving those red marks.
Well, you know what, Adam? When Owen was mentioning the red remarks, it reminded me of a story. I was fortunate enough to work for some terrific teachers as a young person. And I remember writing a report very early in my career and being somewhat proud of it and handing it to my boss, who took it home and read it on the train. And the next morning he handed it back to me, and it was about as red could be. And I remember going home that night and being so nervous that I really felt like there was so much red on that report that, my goodness, have I chosen the wrong career? Am I going to lose my job? But here's the rest of the story that ties into face-to-face. The next morning, I came into work, and my boss, who had given me all the red, said, "Come on down, Bill, let's review my comments." The very first thing he said to me was, "Bill, I thought you're doing a really good job on this." And that took me from the floor all the way up to the ceiling. Just those personal words. That kind of concept has not changed at all. And I think it's so important that we keep that personal contact. I mean, it relates to our relationship with clients as well. And I just described the mentoring thing, but in addition to the mentoring and working with your boss and the concept of having relationships with your clients and the challenges related there, I've also heard that brainstorming sessions where the entire team sits around a table and starts talking about the project at hand and throws all sorts of ideas up on the wall. Some are crazy and some are not, but who cares? I think we're missing a lot of that too. So as we move on, we need to constantly remember this communality thing and the value it has to it, to say nothing else about the advantage of being in an office and walking by the water cooler or at the coffee spot and you run into someone who's worked on a similar thing you have, and just start talking about what's going on in your day. So we are people-oriented folks, and most of that is very, very good. So most of what's going on remotely is excellent, but we cannot miss these opportunities for expanding in communality. And I've probably spoken too long, Adam, but you guys really hit some nerves on that one.
Thank you, Bill. I'm really happy with the results of the questionnaire, because 80% of our attendees have admitted that their employers have provided assistance in delivering their work during COVID. I think this speaks volumes to consulting engineering firms agility to perform their work in this time of crisis. So really interesting result there. It's an overwhelming majority. Moving right along to our third topic, which is the increase of productivity versus mental health in the post-COVID world. I think this also relates to what Bill was just talking about with the water coolers conversation, so to speak, that are now lacking in the office. How do you manage mental health versus the increased productivity that some people say there is, some people say there isn't? I would be really interested to hear your perspective on it. Andre, go ahead.
Okay. So I believe, yes, there is an increase of productivity. And I think that's not just because we are with the leisure options limited in the COVID. So because, for example, I live in São Paulo, it's a huge city. And we used to lose a lot of time in the car, going from one meeting to another. So like Rita said, now I can just have one click and change the meeting. And so I believe I can do more things during my work hour period. But it's not that easy. I think that we have to change a little bit our mindset of how measure the productivity. So I think those times people measure this, so how many hours we spend in our office. And now we have to deliver and to design new ways to control and monitor these activities. So dashboards, when we can try to understand how many hours we are spending in each kind of activity. So it's not that easy. We have a whole team thinking about this in our company. And another thing that I believe in this matter is that the importance of the whole of the leader was maximized in this pandemic, because the leader not just need to look for maintain the productivity of their team in their home, but I think the good leader also need to maintain the motivation and the morale of the team, because it's hard to deliver this working from home. When you're in the office, you have body language. You know when your team is not okay. You know when you have to have a small chat with people. And when you're in virtual, it's quite difficult. And also, it's difficult because it's more difficult. Imagine a new team. We have a lot of new teams hired in the pandemic. They never went to the office. And it's hard to create a sense of belonging on this team. And it's really important. So we are also trying to understand ways to make the dissemination of the organization culture, of the organization communication. We are, for example, we are now starting a review with a research with the university here in São Paulo to understand the paper of the leader and their leaders, their team in the pandemic. So how we can manage to improve this relationship, how we can manage to deliver the organization culture to this team. Because it's not just about the increase of productivity. You have to increase the productivity, but you have to maintain the quality. You have to maintain the client satisfaction. So it's really, there is a balance here. And I believe to find this balance is really important because, as we are saying, in the design or consultants, we believe that we can have more hybrid environment in the future. But to have this hybrid environment, maintain the quality, maintain your identity of your company, it's really difficult. So I believe that if we start here, and we don't have the answer yet, I think this is a process that we are living in the middle of the hurricane. But I believe that companies that manage to deliver this will be more successful in the future.
Thank you, Andre. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. Really, it's whether you're a small, medium, large business, it's applicable to managing and developing the team and delivering our services. Rita, I know you wanted to talk about working from home and efficiency, and working days becoming more tiring, and so I'd be really interested to hear your views on the topic also.
Sorry. Yes. So I fully agree with Andre that we really should change the way we are measuring the productivity, because I think some of the tasks that we've normally been doing at the office, for example, writing a report or doing some research work, those may take your whole work day at the office, when you have the ability to have the breaks, or you have the colleague who wants to talk with you. But at home, I really think that we are sometimes, some of us may have possibility to really focus more better at home. And in this way, I think there is a little bit of challenge here when people are doing the same work at 6 hours at home, but they do not really understand that then they may not have the same breaks, for example, and then they are feeling bad that, oh no, I'm already ready, but I should work for the full 8 hours. And I think this is something that stresses out people at the moment in some of the tasks. But also from other point of view, I think another challenge at the moment, as we all are working remotely, when you want to talk to another people, you really need to book a time or try to reach by calling to other people. And there are people who are struggling with their fully booked work days at the moment, and that is awful situation. I've been in that. I have had meetings from 8 to 4, and after that time, I've been trying to think when is the time that I should do my all work. So another 8 hours, maybe not. That is not efficient. And I think this is the situation we really need to help each other, try to really understand how we can organize our days so that we really are efficient. I was talking about efficiency also at the beginning, but we really need to reorganize our timing and help ourselves and each other with this, or otherwise I think I've already seen some of my colleagues who are way too tired of working, and that is scaring at least me here in Finland.
Yeah, I think you also struck a note for me. I think in general, as our panel of, we're called future leaders, but we're already a bit later in the career. And when we're scheduled with Zoom meetings or team meetings for business development, for project status report, for so on, and the entire day goes by, and you're theoretically you're done working, and you look at your inbox and you have 200 unread emails. I think it's becoming standard, which is a bit it shouldn't be, but yeah. So I think you struck a chord with me for sure. I'm not sure, Kaveh, have you experienced the same maybe?
Yeah, I totally agree with Andre and Rita. Because yes, using technology and these facilities that we have has its own challenges at the same time with the benefits. So one challenge that is important, especially in developing countries like Iran, is that the level of access to internet and also electronic devices like tablets, laptops, or whatever is not the same all around the world. For example, the level of access to internet in Iran is different from United States of America or a country in Western Europe. And also in terms of access to devices, even in one single country, it's not the same. For instance, in big cities of Iran like Tehran, people have more access to laptops and iPads compared to a rural parts of country in the different parts. So this could be a kind of unfair and situation, which is not, and it's a sense of inequality in general, which is a challenge from my perspective. The other thing is in line with what Mr. President said about communality, because I believe that these online working, remote working, and using online platforms will eventually affect our social, spiritual, and behavioral aspects of lives, and it can cause some serious issues in terms of our mental health, because in general, offices, wherever we worked before, were the centers that people can meet their basic needs of social life, and they would interact with each other and spend time, even to chat about very simple things like the football match for last night. But now, because more things are doing individually, so this could be a challenge in longer term. I'm not talking about 1 year and a half. I'm talking about 5 years time, or maybe 10 years time. If it continues like that, it can be a serious problem, I guess.
Thank you, Kavak. Those are really good points, both about the general increasing country to country, and also cities versus rural areas, the lack of equal access to internet and communication tools, and the increase in the gap in development. I think it was a really good point, and same with the health issues and social life impact. Luckily, in Poland, we got kicked out of the Euro, so we don't talk about football anymore. So, but Masao, if we can hear from you, please.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. Okay, let me speak. To keep the increase of productivity. In Japan, or at my company, employee management is becoming more complicated. And more time is being used only for monitoring and reporting for those management. And it looks like both employers and employee are struggling and tired of such controls. I think this varies among the world because of the cultural background. Japanese people like well-disciplined. But there's of course some who are not. And when it comes to the productivity and mental health, make full use of communication tool is a key for me. To do so, we need to have the same viewpoint on the characteristic of each tool, such as emails, not so timely, but good for recordings and searchings, and chats, a bit timely, but roughly be used for the recordings, and telephone, timely and good for urgency. But for telephone, we need to be considerate enough to keep calling after working hours, not to keep calling after working hours or holidays every day. Unless you are in a good relationship like a friend, or you are calling for a beer. And communication itself is also very important. If you have a little time at the office, there may be a risk to look at the company only through contract rules and regulations, not by faces of your bosses or colleagues. Then the mutual support or the cooperation becomes difficult. And as a future leaders, so far we talked about new technologies or efficiency of work. However, a lot of speakers already mentioned, what I think is the most important is the communication and consideration to others. And change and development have been occurring all the time. And this is what we are working for. But what is unique to COVID-19 is that we can change at the same time in the worldwide scale while cooperating. And as the last future leaders of normal as standard, I think we need to convey the importance of face-to-face communication to the next future leaders with the new normal as standard. I don't think whether I can express my feelings very well, but this is how I'm feeling now.
I fully understood where you're coming from. In Poland and let's say Eastern Europe, in COVID now, the culture is so that it's pretty easy to keep in touch with people you already knew. So if you knew somebody before COVID, you can arrange a Teams and, you know, have coffee over Teams, or even have a beer over Teams, watching a game in the background and so on. So I've personally been doing that, and I know people have been doing that to keep in touch with their relationships. However, going for new relationships has become a bit difficult, because if you don't know anybody to start with, you know, dry calling and dry emails are becoming trouble. Of course, you can do it and you should do it, but it's something that requires a lot of energy and focus to you know, both personally and for business development and just in general. So with new clients, for example, what Andre mentioned, you know, the going to lunch is a standard practice, I would say. It was maybe, but now, you know, you don't know them, it's hard to meet them. So I fully echo what you said with this, our responsibility for us, this, let's say, older future leaders to reach out the hand to the new future leaders, and it's on our shoulders to say, hello, come on in, you know, welcome to the company, let's have a Teams, you know. And yeah, I fully agree with what you said. And Owen, how is it in Ireland?
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Yeah, I was just picking up on a point there that Kavit had made on the you know, the potential inequality across countries, and I think that can also be reflected across companies as well. You know, remote working has kind of been shown to work an awful lot better for some staff than others. People who have space available to separate their home life from their work life are always going to be better set up for kind of remote working. Junior staff in particular, who might be sharing accommodation with people that they don't know very well, or in smaller apartments or whatever, you know, it's very difficult to get any sort of work-life balance if you're effectively getting up, making your bed, sitting back down on that bed with your laptop, and that's then where you're working for the day. That makes it very difficult to fill more your job, but also to get any sort of work-life balance across your life. There's maybe an assumption that the drive back to the office is going to be led from a director level or a company ownership level, but in fact we might see that more junior staff want to get back into the office because there's a more social aspect to it. You meet people in the office, you can go for lunch, you can go for a coffee on a Friday, you can go out maybe or whatever. But also the working arrangements are more suitable for staff within an office. So we want to avoid that sort of inequality or staff feeling that they're disenfranchised by being forced into working from home. I think in the engineering community, we're more likely to go back to working in offices and having a flexible arrangement, and maybe some time in the office, some time at home. Certainly you're seeing in maybe some of the IT companies where they're now talking about having fully flexible work from home arrangements. And I think that that's something that we need to be very careful in moving towards, because there is the chance of maybe disenfranchising some staff. And that's before you even start to consider that in terms of a site supervisory role, we need to have people turning up day in, day out.
I think we're having some technical difficulties with
the whole way through COVID. We've had staff. Sorry, can you hear me okay, Adam?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Is there any wrap up you would want to do before we lose internet?
Sorry, no, that was pretty much it. The only other thing I was going to say was just that there is a flip side to that and a balance to that, where avoiding commuting obviously has a good mental health, perhaps, for some people.
Yeah, thank you for that. We do have an online question, our last online question for our audience, which is: has the change in the way business is conducted impacted communication or mental health on your teams? If we could go to the question. And just to prepare Nelson, if I could ask you to maybe comment on the result of the survey once it pops up. Thank you.
Well, it's interesting to see 75% said there has been a change in the way business is conducted and the impact on communication, mental health. Actually, that does not surprise me, Adam. I mean, let's take FIDIC, for example. We represent 102 countries around the world. And looking through the HQ staff, yes, we had to look at, how do we use the technology in a way? Our board hasn't actually physically met since January or February 2020 physically, but we actually continue with the board activity. And in fact, I came up with a sort of a funny idea to the board, and I said, we need to have a sort of a getting to know each other idea. And I remember last year we said, there's no discussion. We're just gonna have a get to know the board members. And we had a session nearly 2 hours, which is quite good. The same principle applied among my staff within FIDIC, where we have a get together online, and we have a catch up on a weekly basis where we ask about how people's well-being and what is their mental issue and if we need any support. This is very important. I think it's really, really important that we need to take cognizance of the issue. Productivity may be so high. What is the downside in the medium to long term? And where does the people get together, get to know each other and be able to, stroke each other, have a drink, have a conversation in the corridor. These are very, very important. And I think, even though if we end up with a hybrid version where we're working at home, sometimes working in the office, we need to be mindful, as Bill said, it is about people and it's people's business. We need to get closer to people. We need to understand what their challenges is. It's bad for any leader to just expect productivity without thinking about the social well-being of their staff. It's very, very important. And I'm keen about that, to make sure that, one thing I do, and for those who are listening from FIDIC office, first question I start when I have a get together, any big issue. Do you have an issue that I need to be aware of? Is there any issue that may impact your progress? Does your colleague knows what are the issues that you need to be aware of? This is very important because sometimes people just think about productivity and productivity only, but asking about the well-being of your staff, your colleague, your senior people is actually a fantastic way to start a conversation. Now, if you get an email from me, you will hear the first thing is, hope this email finds you well. It's very important, subtle question. Before you go into the question, it helps people to feel we are human. So I'm really pleased that, the feedback coming from the future leader is encouraging. And I hope those who are listening, we take this as, something we need to deal with it to make sure people, mental well-being is very important. Back to you, Adam. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for those words of wisdom with regards to this mental health issue and how it applies to management and how we can be, better managers and better people in general. I would have a plea to the member associations, if they're watching, to share this webinar and encourage their future leaders to go to YouTube if they're not registered at it right now and watch it at a later date. We are very open in helping you develop your local future leader groups. So if you want, you can reach us directly, and we are more than happy to share all our know-how and knowledge and FIDIC materials with you so you can set up a future leader group in the area. Over 50% of MAs have future leader groups already, so that's not a bad number, but we want to encourage the increase in that. Also, we are launching our booklet article submission. You can find it at the link in the chat box. It was sent by Chanel, and the best articles will get offered a chance to speak at the annual conference at our Future Leader Seminar. So if you want to get your voice heard, please feel free to submit your articles to that booklet. And now I think we've been just right on time. It's 1:15, so we're going to move to questions. I saw a series of questions in the chat box, so thank you very much for that, and feel free to ask more questions right now. I think the one question that was asked by 3 or 4 different people related to supervision on site versus working at work, which is, I think, a main issue of, I would say, middle management and people in consulting engineering firms right now doing classic inspection, site inspection, quality inspection work. Andre mentioned, sorry to put you on the spot, Andre, but you mentioned the drones aspect and the junior staff flying drones across the construction site. So maybe you would want to expand on that a little bit and tell us how you managed it within TPF in Brazil.
Okay. Well, this was an interesting case because we have a client that's really strict to the social distance rules. So the client doesn't allow us to send our senior staff. But we have the same responsibility on the work. We have the same responsibility on the quality of this survey, of this monthly survey. So we thought that the drone would be the shortest way to get our senior staff to the field. So we invest some money in acquire a drone with more quality imaging. So our senior staff can be at home looking to the image. But it's not just this. It's really important the communication between the team, because some places we don't have access to internet because it's really in the countryside. But when we have access to the internet, it's interesting also to the senior staff going online, going in the phone with the senior people that are home, or also trying to make some video calls when they have a big issue in the field, so they can, okay, what is your opinion here, or what do I have to show you in your home? What do you need? There's this kind of problem here, and what do I need to film or to have a picture to show to you? If you were here, what you were going to do in my place? So I think it's not just the technology, but we have to maintain this communication between the team. Don't know if this kind of answered your question, but
yeah. I would add maybe the Eastern European element from our first point of view. Our company has 200 professionals, over 30 projects in the region, and most of them are on large, let's say, railway or road projects. And the clients here have been quite good at limiting the amount of people that are at meetings, because our tradition as a culture is, you want to have 30 people at a meeting and, hear from everybody one by one and engage in this sort of classical communication. Whereas during COVID, especially when the spikes were pretty high, clients were ready to meet with site inspectors, one representative from the client, one representative of the site inspector, and one representative of the contractor, and that's it. And they would meet outside and go through the construction site. So it's a classical, maybe they're still meeting physically, but they're decreasing the risk of any disease, so to speak. So clients were very open to that. And also issuing, especially training to older key staff that are engineers, 55 plus, 60 plus engineers, to get issuing iPads, electronic devices for them to do what you just mentioned, video walkthroughs and so on, was also a common theme here in the region. I don't know, any of the panelists want to add something about their perspective from their region? Masao, maybe Japan would be interesting.
Thank you, but yeah, for me, I don't have much idea. Yeah, not for the site inspection, but at the office, we are reducing the number of seniors. But at the site, we keep some restriction to go while we get vaccinated or get enough certificate from the hospital or such kind of thing.
Thank you. Another question that was asked twice or three times was related to Rita's comment about the long hours of meetings and emails later. I saw that it was kind of joined with the assessment, how to do staff assessment in the COVID area, for example. Rita, maybe you can give your perspective of what you would think, would be a good way of assessing staff performance in this moment of COVID and the change in new normal.
Yeah, good question. What I think what I've been doing with my colleagues for the background, I've been changing my work during the past year also. So I've been facing the challenge also to really know people. But I'm working as a project manager or also from time to time, and I'm trying to get people involved into projects quite heavily. I'm using quite a lot of time at the moment to really involve people and trying to understand what is the support they really need when they are working, and getting to know people in that way during my work. Maybe that is but I do not have really a good one answer to.
Yeah, well, from a perspective of in Poland, what we've done with our office is that it really comes down to the client's evaluation of our performance. So whenever the client is happy, that means the project manager might be doing a good job. So we've kind of pushed it down even more so than we have in the past. We really haven't done quarterly reviews during this episode, like formal quarterly reviews that we used to do before COVID started. So I think we kind of took a step back to see, you know, we only do where the fire is actually burning. So if a client has a problem, is where we focus to try to get in and help our staff participate. So I'm not sure if that answered the question, but thank you for all your questions that are coming in. I see there's one more question from India, which pertains to what Kavak was mentioning about affordable, you know, iPads, laptops, and other accessories. Yeah, I think it's also a question in Poland. It's the same with people outside in the rural areas. I don't know, Kavak, would you like to expand maybe on Iranians' perspective about this? You know, has your company tried to actively help your staff with, you know, access to internet? And so I know satellites now, internet via satellite is a common theme with Elon Musk. So I'm not sure if that's available in Iran, but I would be interested to hear your view.
No, actually, it's not available yet. But in terms of accessing devices, yeah, actually, I remember that one year ago, a charity was just created to get some fund for students who were studying in rural areas in Iran. And so it was really successful because it was a great issue in terms of educating pupils in general. And in terms of, supporting facilities for workers in my company, actually it's the case, and they are doing well in supporting in terms of IT and managing this stuff. And but it's not the case for all companies and all around Iran, actually.
Okay, thank you. So we're getting to the point where we would want to wrap things up. So if Andre, Owen, Masao, Kaveh, or Rita, if you wanted to mention your final thoughts, if anybody wants to do a quick wrap up, you're welcome. If not, then we'll let Dr. Ogunshakin, the FIDIC CEO, finish the session for us. So please go ahead.
Thanks very much, Adam. Anybody busting out with one or two closing comments? You know, Masao, do you have any closing comments at all, or Kava?
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that almost everybody, not almost, but everybody is having the human-oriented mind. Yeah, I'm very moved now.
Do you have any closing comments?
Also, I'm really happy. It was my first time to present in FIDIC webinars, and it was a very good experience. Thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Andre.
Okay, I just want to thank you all to understand the problems you are struggling in your country is not that different. The problems that we are struggling here. It's really nice to understand our market issues around the world.
Thank you. Rita, any comments?
Well, nothing special from my part either. Just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to speak at this webinar. And also it is very interesting to hear what are the challenges all over the world and share our knowledge and also share our tips to each other so that we can learn from each other also.
Thank you. Owen, any thoughts on this from Ireland?
Thank you, Nelson. Just to thank everybody who spoke, all of the other panelists. It was very interesting to hear the various different points of view. And I think we spoke an awful lot about the challenges that COVID and the remote working and maybe our future working arrangements are going to bring.
Right. Thank you very much. You have been there.
There's also a lot of benefits that we took. It's important to remember both of those.
Okay. Well, we have one of the future leaders in the background. I'm just going to do the unusual thing. Rodrigo, can I bring you out? Any comments? Because you've been silent in the whole process and you've been waiting there. I just wonder, any closing comment from you? I know you're sort of doing the backing for Adam, just waiting for things to go wrong, but you know, the technology seems to work. So Rodrigo, any comment at all before we move on?
Sure, Nelson. Thank you. Fortunately, nothing went wrong. So I think it's really,
that's good.
It's really interesting to see the perspectives of everyone. And I think we have future leaders from different backgrounds, different regions, and it's really enriching to have these various experiences to share with the group and how work has been different for everyone, at least. So it's great to see how they have overcome these issues and also how they have adapted, which I think from the future leaders' perspective is really important, to have this open mind, to be able to adapt and to keep doing the best we can to keep helping our companies to progress.
Excellent. Thank you, Rodrigo. Well, I'm going to ask Bill for 1 minute, just 1 minute. I know he's busting to say one closing comment. Bill, you got the floor, Bill.
Thank you, Nelson. And I might actually be briefer than 1 minute. You guys have shared just a ton of good ideas and problems or dilemmas, whichever way you want to put it, that need to be resolved. And the best part of that is I heard a number of you mention that these are situations you're still struggling with or trying to figure out. And that's great, because if you think you know the solution to a lot of these things, you ought to think again, because these are different. We're entering a different time with different problems. One other thought that I have in closing this is a lot of this dialogue reminded me of whenever I head down to see my daughter in New Jersey, who's not an engineer. She works as an executive with a pharmaceutical company in a whole different profession. But she has direct reports and she reports to people too, like a lot of professionals. And I listen to her on the computer all day long. And some of the conversations that she has reminded me of a lot of the things you folks are dealing with. So here's the nugget of advice, if it's worth it. All of you know people working in other professions or other types of work. They all have similar issues. So share knowledge with them and listen to what some of their thoughts are, and we may all learn, because I believe the problems are very, very similar. So thanks, Jessica. And you guys, once again, you're phenomenally well prepared. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Bill, for that closing round. I mean, there's a lot that I can go on about. All I can say is that you guys, you've just focused on 3 key points. You focus on the impact of remote working. You focus on the technology and the impact, both plus and negative. And you look at the productivity and against human issue, particularly to do with well-being. And I think, if there's any one point that anybody can summarize in the big issue of what is happening on COVID, this is quite fundamental. And the fair that, you know, you future leader are looking at the impact on people, on well-being, and the way we work. To me, is just incredible. I'm so grateful that you guys had the opportunity to talk openly about this issue, because sometimes the senior executive and the top guys talk about the issue about merger and acquisition and the finance and all of that. But the basic thing that keeps people going, that motivate people, that educate people, encourage people to come to the industry, you touch about it. And I just, at one point that I pick up, which really, you know, goes very well with me, was the issue about the red pen. And this is quite fundamental, because when you have your, you know, your mentor guiding you, and they send you email with a lot of highlights into it, and they don't discuss, it's not the same thing, as Bill said, as when they are next to you and they can put their hands around you and encourage you to say, you've done great, but you need to move forward. And is that you've done great, but is the one that makes you a better engineer and a better consultant. So that to me is my real takeaway. And I think this is absolutely important. So without spending too much time, I want to thank you all from, you know, Adam, who's led the particular program and clearly and cleverly mastermind the whole process. Adam, thank you very much. Richard, thank you. Rodrigo in the background. Masao, thank you very much. Eon, thank you. And others who sort of joined the group. So thank you very much for your support on this. And Bill, thank you for your time. I'm glad you are able to join us once again. Again, the program that FIDIC is putting forward is as clear as it is. We continue to do with the FIDIC committee program, and there is one coming up in October. There is, you know, State of the World coming up on 22nd of July, which will be the third report coming up this year. That's incredible. That's incredible. Then we've got other items coming up, and in between now and September, we've got our FIDIC conference coming through. But I cannot finish this program without saying massive thank you to the FIDIC staff. Led by, you know, Barbara and Chanel and the rest of the team who are there making sure that the ladies and gentlemen are on time. We had 900 people register, and I've seen on the list over 300 people who's actually participating, which to me is 1/3. That is brilliant. But without spending too much time, all I can say is thank you very much to all of you, and to those who participated in this program, regardless of where you are. I hope you are keeping safe. And I will say this on behalf of FIDIC, thank you, stay blessed, and keep safe.